afternoon, or good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Council of the Ones Babylon 5 review. And today I've got with me my fellow council members, Fiona Wolf, Mountains of Elysium, and you know him, you love him, he's wacky, he wears a mask, Lord Koj.
Hey.
Hey, guys and gals, good to see you all, and to everybody that's in the chat, good to see you all as well. And yeah, it's Friday. It's time to party. Time to talk some Babylon 5. And today is going to be a really fun episode, really good review. And as, of course, the one and only two-part episode in the entire series, War Without End. So, my fellow council members, I have done my thing. No sense staying on any more ceremony because we got a lot to talk about with this two-parter. So let's jump on in. War Without End.
Where do we begin?
A good prequel to this would be, sleeping in what was it? Like my brain?
No, it'd be Babylon Squared.
Well, besides
Babylon
that,
Squared.
the book-wise, the first canon book, Dreaming in a City of Sorrows. There we go.
Yes, the one with Sakai in it too.
Yep, because that actually shows
his waifu.
Where his waifu goes to.
Waifu goes back in time and is like, wow, this is different. And you look different. Because, well, we get the return and we get I think, a satisfying conclusion to the story arc of a favorite character of all of ours. And that is, of course, Captain Jeffrey Sinclaire, or as we know him, Intil Valen. Or, if you prefer, the one who was.
Oh, yes, but Draw gives Zathras list of things not to say. This was one. No, not good. No. Not supposed to mention one or the one. You never heard that. Shh.
Yes. Because when you watch Babylon Squared, that episode makes no sense, but when you watch it now, that conversation makes completely more sense.
It's like poor Ivanova is like, wait, you're telling me we're the ones that stole Babylon 4?
Yeah, we are. And to the chat, Beer31 and Colin P. Smith, it is good to see you both. It is, Colin, it has been a very long time since I've seen you in the chat, so glad to see you this evening, because I know you, my good man, are from across the pond, so I know it's rather late for you, but I'm glad you're tuned in tonight, or whatever. So, but yes, there is so much here. This is a time travel story, which a former member of the council did not care for time travel stories, but I personally love time travel stories. I think time travel stories are awesome because it harkens back to a great piece of Victorian literature by a great Victorian author, and that is, of course, H.G. Wells, the great-great-grandfather of science fiction. Right along with Edgar Rice Burroughs, who wrote John Carter of Mars. But that is another story for another time. But this is honestly a great...
P.S. Go read John Carter of Mars. It's fun.
And go watch the movie by Disney because it's actually pretty good.
Yeah.
The only way to get a straight answer out of Ranger 1 was to look at every reply in a mirror wall hanging upside down from the ceiling. Marcus Cole. Yep. His explanation for anything that Ranger 1 or Intel Valen or Jeffrey Sinclaire. And if you watch The Gathering, the pilot episode, what is the first line of dialogue out of the late Ambassador Kosh's mouth?
Intil Valen, right?
Exactly. And now that makes complete and total sense because Kosh was alive during the first Shadow War and, in fact, met Valen. And, of course, we have another... Yes, Colin P. Smith, I'll bring up your comment here. I actually like the Disney movie. The way they added of Mars at the end makes perfect sense in context. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But there is, guys, there is literally so much in this episode, these 2 episodes to talk about. I'm busting at the seams. Let's dig in. Come on, pick something, anything. Somebody else besides me pick a
I
topic.
like how Sinclair sends letters to himself, and Rathan's like, "It's specifically for you. See, your name's on it." And he's like, "What?"
You know, I was thinking like that's like English for what 1,000 years ago? 900 years ago. They said. Those
Yeah,
are old.
because
So he wrote those 100 years after going back. So
Yeah.
they
Well,
don't
yeah,
know
'cause-
English. They're like looking at it as, what is these markings?
and the fact that I think most Minbari don't they live like because Delin lived over 100 years, like so-
Almost 200, I think.
So she's
Yeah.
like his great times 9 granddaughter.
yep.
Yes, because she is, and this is a mild
That's right.
spoiler for later on in season 4, she is a child of Valen. Because that's what Ducat was trying to tell her before he died.
Yep, because apparently that's a big no-no. Like because they found out that human DNA, so they were even lying even before the fact, like to keep people from, going blitzkrieg. It's like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm. Dang. I feel that moment. I was like, Zathras, maybe we spoke too much.
And I
No.
want to bring up. I do want to bring up.
You
Did not
Zathras.
hear that.
All the Zathras. Many Zathras.
Yes.
We
And I
both
want to
Get
bring
them
about this.
confused.
Yeah, really. Especially considering it's all the same actor who plays, well, at least the 2 Zathras that we interact with most. But yeah, because there is another species, there is another person of Zathras' species there on the Great Machine that we see, but we don't know his name, so we assume it's Zathras as well. It's just a different actor playing the part. But I want to bring about.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'll get his name. I actually found the other fella's name there, but I never wrote it down. I'll just get his name there while you're reading that out.
Okay.
For the longest time, I
From-
thought it was the same guy.
Nope.
It's crazy. That's how good they are.
Mm-hmm. From the Lurker's Guide. In your comments on War Without End Part 2, you said Valen had no children. Is your message right, or is the episode? What airs is considered canon. In 15 years, nobody's going to be hauling these messages around, but the show will still be on the air. If it airs, it's canon. And on another one of those points, I did mention that on just a couple of small occasions, I have fibbed when asked major story arc questions to protect future storylines from being deflated. Yep. So. Yeah, Tom Choate. Thank you, Colin P. Smith. I'll bring up Colin's. I want to make sure that was an Orwell retcon. It was added later. Bureau 31. I did not know that. So,
Yep.
okay, I'll bring up Colin's. I love Marcus's fatalism when he disappears just before Ivanova is discovered. I just ask myself, what would be the worst time to be discovered?
Yep. Oh boy.
Okay, and all right, and ready? Why do people always ask if someone's ready before you're going to do something massively unwise? Tradition. Sinclair and Delin aboard Babylon 4.
And I actually like the other comment that they make where, like, stepping over your grave. I'm trying to remember if that's in this episode or if it's in the next one, but it's just like, oof, symmetry.
Mm-hmm. And all my life, I've had doubts about who I am, where I belong. Now, I'm like the arrow that springs from the bow. No hesitation, no doubts. The path is clear.
Yo, I love that quote because right when he sits down, the camera zooms in to Marcus, and on Marcus's face, he's like nodding inside, saying, "That's some G shit, man. That's real." Like he gets it,
because
like he's into it. That's like his number, his Qui-Gon, right?
Well, think about it. Ranger 1 is until Za to every single Ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Just as Delin is until Za to every Ranger. Even though she has a fight to deal with later on.
I personally
But-
did like the little part where as they're trying to go into the past, Sinclair's looking at Delenn and Sheridan, and he sees how close they've gotten, and he's like, "I approve."
Yeah, that was cute. I noticed that.
Well, and familiar face in the chat, Zach Leary. Never seen any of them. Well, Zach, I would advise you either pop over to Amazon or to HBO Max and start at the beginning and work your way through, because we're 3 seasons deep into this series. So you're coming in at a very interesting time.
It's like, welcome to the episode that will make sense or help make sense of a season 1 episode later on.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. But it's crazy. The continuity is astoundingly on point, and it's great how it all works. And I was also remembering, isn't Voices in the Wilderness, isn't that a 2-parter also? And isn't that one part of this in a way? Because Epsilon 3 has a lot of parts to play in this, I think, too.
Well,
So would you think it would be Babylon Squared, Voices in the Wilderness, and then this one, including the book?
Maybe.
Maybe a little bit, just because it introduces the Great Machine, and this kind of expands on what it's able to do, like helping open, keep the tear open a little bit. And then the tear
Zathras
stuff does come back from that sector, where there's the different timeline of Ivanova warning of a shadow attack, and that whole thing goes screwy.
Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that whole part, because they're picking up the transmission from Sector 14 that's coming from the tear, and it's the alternate future where Babylon 4 never gets sent back in time, and the shadows are just tearing everyone to pieces.
That, and I think that's part of the future that the seer lady saw, like back in season 1 when she was
Exactly.
Sinclair.
Because the
maybe.
sounds that they used, I think, were the same, and same with the same imagery when he was looking back. And the image he saw of Babylon 5 explode was from that seer.
Yep, because Garibaldi had rigged it to explode, and that Ivanova had mentioned Garibaldi's dead, all that, So I think that initial seer did see that alternate timeline if they hadn't succeeded with, sending Valen back in time, basically.
Because essentially that part hasn't happened yet. It still could change.
Yep.
Essentially, yes.
From when she saw that. Oh, that's so good.
I always had a fan theory that was Borland projection to get them to actually do the perform the tasks they needed to do. Because had Sinclair not gone back, Babylon 5 would not have been built, and this future would not have happened anyway. So it's weird. Delenn couldn't be there because, well, her grandfather wouldn't have been born. Or wouldn't have been... Actually, her grandfather was born, but wouldn't have gone back to... Yes, time travel is confusing.
But honestly, the way this series does it's a closed circle. Yeah. It's not like multiple different timelines like what they did with Terminator and everything else, and kind of making that kind of screwball-y.
Like everything stays tight knit, kind of like that classic story, The Time Machine. How every time you went back in the past, you try to change something happened to maintain the timeline because he's present there, which means for him to be there, the time has to be consistent. So it's like the same kind of theory here, it looks like. That's why when they go back, let's say like 5 years or whatever, and their time stabilizers are messed up and they go back to the future, that like adds on 5 more years to them or multiplies.
Well, for Sinclair, especially because he went through there initially back in Babylon Squared in season 1. So he's affected. Garibaldi would have been infected the same way.
Exactly.
But since Ivanova made that comment, next time I get to go out. Well, this time she did, and Garibaldi stayed at the station.
Right? It's funny how that worked out. Self-fulfilling prophecy or something.
And no one ever listens to Bureau 31. No one ever listens to Zathras. Zathras is accustomed to being beast of burden. Very miserable life. Most likely very miserable death. So, perfect symmetry.
Symmetry.
Yes. And I gotta say, Timmy Tom Choate. He brings such exuberance to the role of Zathras. And Zathras is such a quirky character. I got a question for you, Finn and Elysium. Did they ever actually give a species name for Zathras's race?
I don't think they did. They're just mentioned as the caretaker. They help caretake the great machine. But it seems to be like it's a whole big family business because there's so many Zathrases.
Yeah.
But they're pronounced slightly different.
And funny enough, I was watching the next episode when the other Zathras appears, and he said, "No, Zathras never listened to me. Never listened. Had a bad end." So, well, Zathras says here, no one listens to Zathras. Zathras didn't listen to anyone either.
Yep. Let's see. It says here on the setup for the wiki, there's 8 other brothers, all named Zathras.
It's almost like my family. All 5 male members of my family have the exact same name, just slightly different variations.
But
I'll tell you all affair.
Well, the N. Balin's name comic does go into what happens with Sinclaire and Zathras afterwards. In Babylon 4, you get to see why it ends up becoming a derelict, and the B5 team finds it, and they try to figure out what happens. And he left a message for Delenn and everybody at the end. It's like, I wish I could have warned you all to prevent the initial human Minbari war, but yep. And a lot of the Minbari in the past don't even understand why Sinclaire has like the particular mannerisms that he does, but Zathras understands. It's like,
and I want to bring up Colin's the comment here. The one thing that occurs to me from this story is that Sinclaire is both supremely important, it's supremely irrelevant. Whoever goes back would become Valen, and thus would have been identified as identified at the Battle of the Line, thus made commander of B5, then ambassador to Minbar. Yeah, Colin, that's true.
That's the reason why I kind of see it as a circle of time travel, because he becomes his own progenitor, like constantly. It's a constant cycle of tying these 2 races together even before anybody knew it.
Well, and the interesting thing about the title of this episode, or these episodes, is it has a dual meaning, because at this point the war against the shadows could potentially go the same way it did last time, but we know that it won't. But also, Delenn mentions to John in the future, the war with the shadows does end, but the war still carries on, because she's alluding to the war with the Drakh. So it's very appropriate that this episode be called War Without End.
I think in the when JMS was talking about it, the title means that there is always war. No matter what, we try and bring peace, but there will always be conflict. The Shadows, Vorlons tried to bring peace. They brought war. The younger races are always warring, and those after will have war.
At least until we evolve enough to be smart enough to not make war anymore.
Yes, no, I was reading Twitter. That'll never happen.
No, because I think eventually, even social media will evolve, and hopefully we'll evolve with it. I hope. I live long enough to see it, but who knows? And Colin P. Smith, has anyone read The Stainless Steel Rat Saves the World? There's a connection on this. Honestly, Colin, I've never even heard of it, but I'm willing to give it a shot, like any good piece of literature. So, but the build up in this episode is done very interestingly, because you start off on Minbar with Sinclaire, Ranger 1, and the one Minbari, and then I don't think that was Yokesh. I think that was another. I know the suit design is similar to Yokesh's suit, but the voice isn't the same unless I'm mistaken. So that would means that there was another Vorlon emissary or whatever floating around out there. Your thoughts
Yeah,
on
that's
that?
a different one. That his voice was completely different than the other one, the mean one.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yokesh.
some of the notes are saying it was Yokesh, but I guess he hadn't really lost his mind at that point.
I thought there's like a bunch named Yokesh and a bunch named Kosh and then a bunch named Posh or something. Like there's a like I
No,
don't know. I
the
thought there was a bunch of names like that.
the line is, "We are all Kosh." That's the line.
Right.
I love
So
that line.
that's why I thought he was different because their names are all like shared, or yeah.
Or it could mean that they have like a shared consciousness or something. Because if you think about it, beings made of energy, it would be very simple or very easy for them to share a consciousness. Honestly.
That's
But
why
I
they
might-
had a social media. Shoot, I can't figure that out.
No, my guess is the initial part with Sinclair might have been a few days before Kosh dies. So that could explain why Ukesh is a bit more mellow.
Yeah, but you might be if you put it here in the chat.
Well, I guess it could be a different voice, like a different voice actor, because we did get two different actresses for Natoth.
That's
So
true.
maybe the change in voice doesn't really mean change.
Yeah, I mean it. I mean, there's a million ways you could explain it away, but the voices just sounded different. The voice of Yokesh when he comes to the station after Kosh's death sounds completely different from the Yokesh that we see on Minbar. So who knows? It might be the case. It's way back when I was a teenager. I had a friend who said war is the national sport of the human race. Okay, I'll bring up this. Okay, here we go. It's a time travel story by Harry Harrison. There is a similar "where did this character actually come from?" question to Sinclair and Valen. Okay, all right. Thanks, Colin. I'll definitely I'll look it up, see if I can find it on Amazon or whatever.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
But yeah, the time frame for this. The way they set this entire episode up, and like I said, this is the only time we get a 2-part episode. I mean, although you could consider the entire series just a one long continuous story with no breaks, really, but this is one of the few times, or the only time, that Straczynski does a 2-part episode. And I find it interesting because these 2 episodes do tell one long story, but there's so much packed in here that it almost needed it had to be a 2-parter, because you have Sheridan jumping around in time and him having all these different encounters. He has an encounter with Delenn when she's older. She has an encounter with Londo when he's much older and now Emperor, and he's under the control of the Drakh. And it's amazing to me how well crafted. Of course, I guess I should not be surprised at this point. It's JMS we're talking about here. How well crafted he created this time travel story and all the moving parts that are within it, because everybody's got a job to do. Everybody's got someplace they've got a particular task that they've got to take care of, and it all intermeshes so very well. I mean, this episode even sets up what's going to happen later on, not just in season 4 and 5, but also in the TV movies that they make. Because if you think about it, it deals with the war against the Drakh and them knocking down Minbar. And this even ties back all the way to the first TV movie that they did in the beginning, if you really think about it.
Yeah, because when you watch the beginning part, if you watch Ducat's face, you'll see him trying to speak the words that you'll get through much clearer if you watch the other episode.
Mm-hmm.
He really did tie in a lot of stuff.
Yeah, They even like used the same footage too, because then they had to shoot around it and recreate it too, because a lot of that was shot in season 4, and then towards the end of season 4, they did in the beginning, or they were shooting all the Ducat stuff at the same time in the beginning in that episode.
Possibly, I can't remember. I honestly don't know the
That would
production
make more
schedule on this.
sense.
No, it would
Kind
in
of,
terms
right.
of
Yeah.
in terms of budgeting and time and scheduling for everybody. Yeah, that would make the most sense. But if you think about it, War Without End really sets up everything that's going to come down the road in the rest of this season and next season. And I love the conversation there in John's prison cell on Centauri Prime between him and Delenn, and she says, "I can see it in your eyes. You haven't experienced what you're about to go through." And she tries to warn him, and she so emphatically warns him, "Don't go to Zaha Doom. Don't go there for any reason. Do not go to Zaha Doom." But unfortunately, as we find out at the end of this episode of this season, John goes to Zaha Doom.
Well, I think
That always triggers me. I don't know why. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think there was also a part when they finally catch up to that again. You know, Sheridan will look at her. It's like, I'm sorry, I didn't listen to the advice. You know, he understands why she tried to warn him.
Yeah.
But
I think
it still played out the same way.
it's another closed circle because Sinclair always goes back, so that circle is closed. Because
Right.
Sheridan went forward, he can't change that, so he will always have to go to Zahadum, because otherwise the war would not have been won. So Sinclair and Sheridan are both kind of parts of.
Maybe that's the War Without End. That the fact that they're
That's the
both tied to this one moment. One is one's past and one is one's future.
Well, that it could also be the ideological war between the Shadows and the Vorlons. It's a continuous war that has been without end for many, many cycles.
Yes, that is true. I mean, think about it. Go ahead, Elysium.
So I know. Then I'm thinking the Drak, the humans, the thing take up the baton from the Vorlons and Shadows and carry on the war, because I do believe in what is it, the deconstruction of falling stars. When the humans become first ones, that is at the point when another race is destroying Earth, the Sol system.
Well, no,
So
they supernovaed their sun on purpose because
All
something
right.
to do with the Vorlon homeworld. It demanded, I guess, somebody take residence in the Vorlon sector of space. So I guess the humans volunteered to kind of move everybody.
And that would be the core of the gravity of that whole galaxy.
Yep.
Wow.
That's really taking your ball home when you're having a fit. I mean, it doesn't sit well that if you, fair enough, move to the Vorlon homeworld, but why destroy?
Well, I think it was because if I looked at some past episodes and like the Vorlons were all about it's our way or the highway, so it wouldn't surprise me that the humans decided to take the brunt of that and move themselves to the Vorlon homeworld, so that way the Minbari and everybody else could stay on their homeworlds, because the Minbari were more intrinsic. How do you say that word? Intertwined with their world. I mean,
That
humans
is,
are
unless
used to.
they went beyond the rim.
Yeah, you just never know. Like that episode showcases a few things, but I really wish they had gone a little bit more. But hey,
So maybe Earth never recovered from the Great Burn, and maybe that's why it didn't really matter.
yeah, there's that too.
That could be it too. Yeah, there could be something wrong with the planet, anyways. Maybe it had like a Krypton ending; it was going to explode unless they destroy it first or something.
Well, the thing. Well, Lorian did say he'd see us again in a million years, didn't he? Yeah, he did. If you don't destroy yourselves, we hope that you will join us beyond the rim.
Jason
Because
Ironheart said that too. So
yeah, but you know, my hypothesis on the whole us evolving into energy formed beings, it could be possible that there's nothing inherently wrong with the Earth. Maybe it did recover from the Great Burn, but we do know that eventually our sun, in a few billion years, when we're all dead and it won't matter, will go supernova and destroy the Earth. So my guess is what happens in this deconstruction of falling stars is the sun simply going nova.
Well, yeah,
yeah, that
I'm
makes
looking
sense.
at it right now. They induced the sun to go nova, and they're saying Vorlon homeworld, new Earth, Sierra, what like a 1,002,261.
So it will a very long time.
Yeah, but I have a feeling the Vorlon homeworld was heavily automated. It probably just kept everything in working order until its new people could arrive.
Well, there's always been the theory that the Vorlon homeworld is a space station too.
Yep.
Yeah,
I think Elysium, you were the one that posited that hypothesis.
that's correct. Maybe
Elysium,
that's
you there?
what
But
the humans needed
I'm
to
there. I was
use to
just
function. Sorry.
no, it's okay.
no. So I was just digging up something there. I was just going through my notes and mentioning why Babylon 4 hadn't been recognized, and it was JMS addressed that in the Lurkers Guide.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll read this from the Lurkers Guide. Why didn't anyone recognize Babylon 4? Why didn't the Minbari have many records of the last war? It was also a very devastating war, and one of their mistakes was that there was those who were entrusted to keep the past, sort of more advanced version of storytellers, but they put all their data in one basket, as it were, more possessive and jurisdictional. When they and that of the center of data was taken out, a lot was lost. One drawback of a very rigid and structured. Yeah,
Society.
it's true. Society. Yeah, I agree.
Up here we go. In the 1 million plus year, having evolved into beings similar to Vorlons, humans took up residence on the Vorlon homeworld, renaming it New Earth when Sol was induced to go nova by parties unknown, which was from the DVD commentary track for that particular episode. Like, oof! Okay, then.
So who in the world would have a beef against energy-formed aliens or humans?
Would it be the Drak, or was it the Hand? They come into the Legend of the Rangers, I think. So we're bound to, if you're doing the right thing, you're going to annoy someone. So
Well, we would figure that eventually the Drak would be defeated and probably destroyed. So it had to be somebody else. Because let's be honest, as tough as the Drak were, they weren't as powerful as their masters. And even their masters. Well, yeah, they were tough. But if Londo Malari can have a pair of Centauri guards blast them with their energy weapons and kill them, well, then it's reason to say that the Drak can be destroyed too. And let's be honest, if you get the Interstellar Alliance all working together, they pack a lot of firepower across the board. But anyway.
Yeah, I think the Drak are just kind of scary because they have the, other means of attacking and controlling people with their weapons.
Or if they get a control of somebody that's a linchpin somewhere, well, that's one way they can decimate a planet as well.
Exactly. And I think that's the real scary part about them.
Yes.
Their reach. But we can definitely beat them and surpass them, which I think is what happens.
Probably.
They're just like a race of bullies,
We all have our keepers. Maybe someone evolved into another version of the shadows. That's a possibility too.
Yeah, because they're like the demons of the story.
Well, the interesting thing is, if you realize, the thing you have to realize, and I know we're getting a little off of the episode here. The shadows lost their way, just like the Vorlons did. They became lords of chaos rather than being shepherds and doing what they were supposed to do. And that's why the Vorlons have to go to the extreme that they go to try and keep order. And they're so stringent that no one can move or evolve or grow or change. And through the actions of not only Sheridan, but also Sinclaire, when he goes back in time and becomes Valen, he sets it up where eventually Sheridan will be able to succeed in season 4 and break the cycle and free everyone. And the shadows are like, yeah, we're going to leave now. We want to go and see everyone that we haven't seen in so long. I mean, Lorien says it himself. As I who taught you and then moved aside, you need to do the same. Lorien had his own part to play in this whole situation. We'll get into that when we come to season 4. But getting back on topic here, even the shadows realize what Babylon 4 is, and they know that if they destroy it, they've got an upper hand right now. Because if you remember what Delenn says to John, the only reason we are in the place we are now is because we fought the shadows to a standstill and destroyed a lot of their ships. And that's why they eventually went into hibernation and went away for as long as they did.
And when Babylon 4 did appear in the past with Valen, the Minbari were exhausted because there wasn't too many spacefaring races at the time to back them up besides the Vorlons.
This is true.
Well, and the other first ones, don't forget that.
Oh yeah, there was a handful of them, but overall, as far as the younger races went, the Minbari were like pretty much the on the scene spacefaring race at the time. Humanity, of course, was stuck in like 1260 something when all this was happening. So
yeah, we're still in gladiator days or something.
Yep.
Not quite. Well, did you mean 1260 BC or AD?
Well, this was 1,000 years ago, right?
Yeah, it would be AD, but it's still in a time where humans are like, oh, we're just now mastering some mechanical stuff, but it's just like, oh, space, not quite yet.
Nowhere near quite yet.
I think the Drazi are the ones that came close. I think it's a few years after this that the Drazi get spacefaring status.
Mm-hmm.
I was stupid. I was going from our time. So no, this would be like 2158. No, that's 100. It would be like 19. Wait, 1,000 years ago from 2258. Okay, I get it. Never mind.
Yeah,
it's okay. It's all right when you're.
No, I was trying to fit it with other films like Total Recall or something, like how far we would be.
Although that Earth's history might be a little bit different because the Vorlons started messing with us sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Or is this also off of a Minbari cycle? Do they have a longer year span?
I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Because if their 1 year is like 5 of ours, I don't know if that goes in the equation. Or maybe I'm just overthinking it now. Yeah, I'll go with that.
And honestly, in this part, Sinclair's message to Garibaldi was like, oh man, so the only way he's really able to see his friend is through a message one last time. Like,
oh.
Yeah. Well, and
that's kind of like Ivanova's dad, too. Just through a screen.
Yep. Yeah, you don't actually get to say goodbye because he was off the station when Sinclair was physically there for a little bit.
Ooh.
Well, I'll say this, one of my favorite parts, but just before everybody's getting ready to leave and the station's getting ready to go back in time, you have that great little piece of world building, which I have used for this. When Sheridan says, I forget, they're all on the CNC of Babylon 4, and it's Sheridan, Sinclair, and Delenn and Zathras. And when you say when you were talking about the one, you pointed to Delenn. And he's like, yes, she is the one who is. She is the middle of the story. Sinclair is the one who was the beginning of the story. And you are the one who will be the end of the story and the beginning of the next great story. And you guess you could throw Ivanova in there as the one yet to be, because she will take up the mantle of Entilza after Sheridan passes.
Yeah, because I think
But-
Delenn is made into the president of the Interstellar Alliance, after Sheridan's gone.
I think, yeah. But I loved that, just that little scene there, because it's so impactful and it's so powerful. I was like, when I wanted to start doing the reviews, and I evolved it and I changed it, I was like, I need something that's very inherent but very catchy for these reviews, and I came up with the Council of the Ones, because even though the Ones weren't together for very long, one episode a day, the one who is and the one who will be go on to do great things. And because of Ivanova's connection to the ranger that she loved, Marcus Cole, and in memory, I think, and in remembrance and a little bit of a tribute to the man that she revered and respected so much, Sheridan, she goes on to be Entilza Ivanova. Ivanova the Strong, as she is known as in the years after the Great Burn.
I like that. I also like the weight of where the story is with, like, I guess the people, because Delenn is the one character who's been there all 5 seasons. We have Sheridan for only 4, Sinclair for only 1, and just a little bit in the beginning, and a lot of Sheridan, for the rest of it, like 80%, and Sinclair is like what 21%, something like that. But Delenn's been through it all, and it's kind of like she's the core chosen one of this story, this whole era. And then we see glimpses of like Sinclair, because he's Valen, and we know a lot of Valen's mention, and then Sheridan for the rest of it, and his story proceeds past Babylon 5 season 5, with Call to Arms and other stuff. So it just makes whole sense of that, and you're like, okay, well, the change of like the human side lead character makes sense.
Well, part of it is because he had to write out a way in case the actor themselves couldn't stay there, because what I've seen from various sources, what I've seen from various sources, this whole story would have been quite a bit different. Like Sheridan wouldn't have even been in it as we know him. That Delenn and Sinclair apparently would have had a kid during this time travel loop, and that kid would help build up the resistance against the shadows in present day, while Sinclair had to go into the past or something. From what I remember of seeing, like the what if part of had things gone a different way, but it's not too concrete, mainly because Straczynski keeps a lot of that stuff close to the chest.
And that's why I think maybe this is kind of like his little personal revelation of how this whole dynamic ended up organically working. Because he said he does take inspiration from his cast, getting to know them, and adds it to the character. Like his stories kind of evolve, but still staying en route to where he's trying to take it to.
But yeah, because honestly, the focus of this episode is very much on Sinclaire and Sheridan and Lynn. And the others are along, and they have their moments. Marcus has his. Ivanova and Marcus have that scene in the barracks or the sleeping quarters, and she repeats back to him what he first said to her in Minbari, and she's like, "I've had time to look this up." So, I thought that scene was actually very touching because
Yeah.
I think she finally understands where she stands with Marcus. And I honestly, I just love their interaction there. So, guys, your thoughts on that, if any?
No, I agree. The dynamic of seeing like Sheridan with his right hand soldier being Ivanova, and then kind of Sinclaire with his right hand soldier being like Marcus. Kind of helped me. Yeah, it kind of helped me put Marcus's status. I was like, okay, I see where you fit in the mold now. And it's like the two halves, the two sides. You got the Earth side and the Minbari, but both shared equally between the four humans, which is kind of like what the Rangers are about too. So it's just I just love how it's all tied together, and we see that.
Yeah. And just a quick hello to the chat, Tim Possible. Tim, good to see you as always. Hope you're having a good evening from Bud. So, and I'll bring up Colin's comment here. And she still never boffed him.
No.
She boffed the one alien.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
Alicia, for heaven's sake, are you kidding me?
Oh, and here's something else from the Lurkers Guide. Apparently, B1 through B3 just experienced, we don't like the idea of this peace project, kaboom. So poor Jinxo.
I know, my bad.
No, but Fiona, I was thinking, what if the shadows were like sabotaging it?
I thought about that myself. Yeah, I had done.
I think it's addressed in the Lurkers
Mr. Morton
Guide.
was there hanging out for a while.
Yeah, I just posted it because I'm looking at a little bit of it. I'm like, but it kind of makes sense. The shadows would probably have some meticulous records, but sometimes records don't survive just due to, like, maybe they had an EMP pulse on some things, or you never know. But they knew Babylon 4 from their own very big records, I suppose.
What if their records was like, some kind of shadow hieroglyphics, and all the Babylon stations look like Babylon 4 to them? They're like, oh crap,
all your stations look alike.
Shapes.
All your stations look alike. We're gonna blow you all up.
It's like the nightmares. Never again, Balin. No.
Well, remember in this episode, they have to stop the shadows from blowing up Babylon 4, so it's potentially. That could, what you put in the chat there, Fiona, could potentially be right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I like that idea too.
Yeah. Well, think about it.
Makes more sense of the struggle and the importance of Babylon 5 existing and functioning. The threat of it. Ooh.
Yeah. I believe was it 1, 2, 3 is like the Home Guard and Night Watch, all those sort of forces. And Babylon 4, it was, I think, addressed that it was only when it came near to completion that the Shadows and their agents recognized it for what it was. And once they saw that, that's when they went immediately to do it, to take it out.
Yeah.
And of course, there is this. Why was Delin so nervous after Sheridan vanished? She didn't know what was coming, and that worried her. She is most secure when she has a definite plan of action, and variables aren't something that the Minbari are good at in any event. They're very rigid and structured. Yes, they are. That and her husbando was missing, so...
Colin P. Smith brings up something interesting. The Babylon Project RPG was set around the time of the first Babylon station. Also, weren't the shadows still asleep beneath Tahajim at the time of the first stations? Maybe, but they might have had something in place where they would have had agents scouting things out.
Yeah, because that
And-
one guy, the head agent that Sheridan met, he was active, longer than Morden and some of the others. So I imagine they had people, they had feelers out there that were just trucking along because they weren't going to be as obvious this time around because they got whipped last time.
It's like the classic
and
thing of
soundly.
like the people who watch out for when the vampires sleep, or have that kind of system.
Well, and Colin brings up, I thought they were woken by the Icarus. They were, yes, but like we said, they could have had people keeping an eye on things while they were asleep. So it's entirely possible that they had a hand in the other stations being kablooied.
I took it as a Shadow Van Neumann probes, which would mean that's why it was fighters and not a Shadow like Battle Crab, which would have completely taken the station out. They would not have been able to defeat it.
Yeah, they kind of look like little drones too. They're like just going straight. Could be like, they're little weapons on autopilot.
And why they needed one of those fusion bombs and not one of their own weapons to take it out.
Exactly. So,
but, because the Vorlons, their ships are sentient and they have that biological thinking type of technology. So it could be like, very advanced little tiny drone. The Shadows are using.
Yeah, maybe. Excuse me. Beg your pardon, folks. But, I feel like we really haven't even... I mean, we've talked about the episode, and we talked about the implications of the episode, but...
Well,
is there anything we've missed?
It's because it's a two-parter. So... So we still will have more to talk about for the second part.
Oh, yeah. I have to say,
well,
when Ivanova said, "I'll be in the car," I was dying laughing. Because I was like, they even use cars? That's just a phrase. But just everyone saying, "Okay, we'll do this, we'll do this." And she's like, "I'm in the car." Like she's ready to bounce.
I'm gonna link this because the way this episode ends, with the old Londo telling Sheridan...
Yep. The next time you see me, you will die.
Welcome back from the abyss. Your timing, as always, is quite exceptional. Just in time to die. Because Londo knows that Sheridan has already came back from one abyss.
Brilliant foreshadowing right there. So clever.
There was I think it was mentioned in the lurkers that when you travel in this setting, you enter your body either in the past or the future, which is why people didn't recognize Sheridan from the past. And they said he'd been kicked unconscious by the guards, which is why he said coming back from the abyss.
That and the one book trilogy where it shows Legions of Fire and all that stuff and what's happening with Veer and everybody fighting the Drock, it actually does get to this point where the older Sheridan, that's where I got it from, where he was apologizing that he went. But apparently, like when they shift into you, the current person is like put to the side for a moment. Ew.
Huh.
Kind of like they're kind of like in a semi-sleep mode, like a miniature blackout, and then but he already knows what happened to him because he experienced it as his past self as well.
The best, kind of like Quantum Leap. That's how I saw it.
Yep.
Like you just get into you take over that consciousness in that body because you can't both inhabit the same time and space, really.
Yeah.
Unless you have a gizmo.
Was it
because he doesn't have a stabilizer?
Yes. I think C.S. Lewis covered that kind of time travel, that if you, as you went to the past, you couldn't change anything. You couldn't breathe the air, and even a raindrop would have to travel the same path, so it would cut right through you.
Whoa.
So you have to inhabit something that existed, or it had to already have happened for you to be able to interact.
Here we go. I'll link it here, but yeah, it's the third book out of the darkness with that trilogy. It showcases like all the stuff with Londo having to put the hidden Drock thing inside the urn, what happens with David because of it, why they end up on Centauri Prime in 2278, him and Delenn. I like how like some of those books did tie in those little things.
That is the best trilogy in my opinion from the Babylon 5 books. That one was awesome.
Okay. And I've got a serious question about that whole thing. What happens to the son? Does he die? Does he turn turncoat? What the hell happens? Because they mention it in this deconstruction of Falling Stars that they only say, well, you know what happened with their son. What the hell happened with David? I mean, I don't care if you spoil it because I imagine most everybody here has read it or
actually
knows.
Unfortunately, it doesn't go that far. It only goes up to the end of like 2279, and David's only like 16. And here it is. Minbari cycles are stated to be less than an Earth year, as established in Babylon Square. A Minbari cycle is 16 Earth months or 1.3 Earth years. David Sheridan's birth date is December 15th, 2262, and in the Lost Tales, states that David is already 9 years old as of 2271. So he was about, I think, 16 when some of this went down, maybe a little bit older. But the Drock thing took control of him. It didn't really do much to him. It just moved him to Centauri Prime so that his parents would follow. It was basically a ploy to get Sheridan and Delenn there, because the Drock wanted to kill them, and Londo was trying to prevent that. So that's why Jakar choked him, so that the Keeper spawn wouldn't be able to get out, like, hey, Sheridan and everybody's escaping. Jakar and Londo really took the bat on that one to prevent, Sheridan and Delenn from dying. It's like, oof.
Yep.
Oof. I haven't read the books, but I believe David is he got what was in the urn in Sleeping in the Light that Londo gave them was a keeper.
Mm-hmm. Like one of the little things that goes on their necks, the little keeper thing.
It's like was it that vampire lore? You have to kill the head vampire to become free of it. So they had, was it Veer or someone had to kill the Drock that infected?
Yeah, Veer actually ends up killing that Drock. So that's called karma,
and that released David from the Keeper.
Okay, and so in other words, David survives.
Yeah, he does. It's just I'm trying to look on here to see what happens to him more in the future, but I don't think they got the chance. They probably would have done that had Crusade kept going. Yeah,
that's what I was hoping for.
So that's the main thing I wanted to know. Does the son survive? Does he get through whatever he goes through? That's the thing I was interested in. I was interested also in what happens to him. What was in that urn? I always assumed that it was a keeper or something like that, but I always was left hanging. What the hell happened to him? I didn't know because I never had a chance to read any of the books.
Apparently, in the deconstruction of Fallen Star stuff for the Great Burn, there's a character listed as Delenn III, which is an ancestor or rather a descendant of David Sheridan.
Oh, so in other words,
he eventually marries and has a family.
Okay, well, just like mom and dad.
Yep. So, man, this thing could have gone off on so many different tangents, but yeah, this episode really does highlight like what's going to happen in the future, even just the immediate future, but even further out. It's like, geez.
Well, and that's the one thing I love about a show like B5 is it's so interconnected, but you don't know everything. But these two episodes, Straczynski gives you a lot. He's like, okay, I've brought you 3 seasons in. Time to give you all a really entertaining and really interesting info dump. But he does it where it's creative and it's fun and it's a nice adventure, and it's also a nice send off for a character that we didn't really get a conclusion to. and that was Sinclair.
Mhm.
Yep.
And I
Because he
needed
just-
that as a fan, big time.
Yes, I did too. I mean, I was like, okay, what the hell happened to Sinclair? I was like, I like the Sheridan guy. I love the Sheridan guy. He kicks ass. But what the hell? What the hell happened to Sinclair? And now we find out. He goes back in time. He helps whip the shadows, and he becomes Valen. He creates a great council. He does all the great stuff that.
And it's also heavily implied that he finds Catherine and they start a family.
Mhm.
And eventually they had to leave Minbar because, there's some upheaval that happened later on that, the whole Minbari not born of Minbari. So their descendants would prove to be hybrids in
Mhm.
some fashion. So
Exactly. And okay, thank you, Fiona. Shivkala himself was tracked down by Virko and Michael Garibaldi. Vir killed Shivkala, and doing so killed the Keeper, which in turn freed David from the Keeper.
Yep.
And probably freed everybody that had a Keeper on them from the Keepers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they even had Lou Welch in that trilogy.
Dang.
That,
Right.
Yep. Garibaldi hid in a wardrobe and said, "What's up, Drock?" I think something like that, to that effect.
Oh my gosh, he did not.
Yes, he did. He said something to that effect, if I remember correctly.
That's hysterical. I love that.
Is a good read.
Yeah, it's the one Babylon 5 book that I got from this pre-owned somewhere. It was from the sci-fi edition where it had all three of them together in a hardback. So, yep.
Yoink.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yoink.
that is so good. All three of them?
Yeah.
Did they give it a new cover or?
It uses the I think it uses a bit of all three covers on it.
Oh,
I'd have to
cool.
go grab it. Yeah, let's see. So I don't trip over my own cord. Give me one moment.
Okay, we'll give you a moment. Okay, it's been the moment. Moving on. But not to mention this two-parter has some really great quotable scenes in it and everything. I mean, I've mentioned one of them,
Yeah,
which was
it does have all three covers on it. It's actually really nice. The middle part has Sheridan and Delin. The one side has Veer with Jakar, and the other side has Londo in his Emperor gear.
Yeah, those covers are beautiful. Because I was reading those while I was getting into the Star Wars Timothy Zahn books. So,
dude.
just having those back to back, it was just those are great times. Let me tell you.
Koj, did I ever tell you the story about the fact that I have first editions of the Thrawn trilogy?
What? No, that's awesome.
I have first editions of the Thrawn trilogy, and they're still in pretty good shape.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I take care of my books too.
And here's the really cool thing: they're all hardcover.
No way! Wow, that is cool.
When I was a kid, I bought hardcover as much as I could, if I could, because I always loved the dust covers. And I loved I loved hardcover. I loved hardback books. I was weird. But yeah, I've got Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and Last Command. And I'm just going to say this as a short little deviation. I do not approve whatsoever of the fact that, oh goody, you have an engine. What do you want, a gold star and a cookie? Sorry, car, street, house. I do not approve of Lucasfilm Story Group yoinking the concept of Luke's hand being cloned or being the source of Snoke, because Timothy Zahn did that first. He did in The Last Command, and it was better in that story than Lucasfilm Story Group borrowing it for their haphazard way of explaining Snoke. So
when did they explain that?
It was in the comic just recently.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, essentially they yoinked that concept from Zahn's book, which is far superior. And well, it's EU, and EU is awesome always ever, and anything related to the sequels blows. Sorry if there's any sequel fans in the chat. I apologize if I hurt your feelings, but I hate the sequels. I hate anything related to the sequels. I hate the fact that they're using. Rogue One's good, yes, but that's not where But that's not important right now. What is important is Babylon 5 and War Without End.
Yes.
And if you get that deep cut reference, you definitely get a gold star and a cookie.
I like cookies.
The whole, but that's not important right now. That's like a deep cut from a favorite spoof movie of mine. It stars Robert Hayes and Julie Haggerty and Leslie Nielsen and Robert Stack and let's see, who was the other guy? Lloyd Bridges. Yeah, Colin P. Smith. Sorry, what? Snoke was Luke. I am so glad I never seen any of the Disney crap.
No, well, imagine a hand and you just add to it with DNA that's inaccurate because it's like a hand. I don't know, and then you get Snoke.
Well, no. Here's the thing. Here's what Timothy Zahn did. Agents of the Empire collected the hand on Bespin, brought it to the cloning facility that was being hidden. Yes. Yes. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Colin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You get that reference. Thank you. Yes, I am being serious, and you can call me Shirley.
Yeah.
For the rest of you who don't get that deep cut, and it's okay that you don't, it's actually from the first Airplane movie.
No, I love that movie so much. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
a drinking problem. Drinking problem.
No, not drinking problem. I picked the wrong day. What the hell? Can y'all hear me? Okay?
Sniffing glue. Yeah.
I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. And Louis X Sparrow comes in and says evening, and he's like, what the hell did I just walk into? Just a brief segue into the funny world of Airplane. That is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Mine too. That was a classic one.
Oh, so. All right. Well, guys and gals, anything else about War Without End that we have not covered that we want to cover?
For part one?
Well, honestly, we've talked about part 1 and part 2 at this point. Because we all agreed that we would do this as one stream.
Yeah, I saw part 1 and part 2 not too long ago, actually. That's one, right?
What?
Let me see. The flashes that they have while the station decides to skip around. Delenn gets to see the door opening when she's having her special time with Sheridan.
Oh, yeah. That's right. That's right. You were saving. Oh, that's right. It was so quick. And I'm just okay. Go.
No, it's okay. Let me finish my little Snoke Luke hand thingy. In the last command is revealed that the clone of Mad Jedi Master Joruus C'baoth created a clone of Luke Skywalker from the hand he lost to Vader in their duel on Bespin. What Disney Story Group has done is they yoinked that concept and transplanted it to say, well, Snoke was created from Luke's hand that he lost to Vader on Bespin because they couldn't think of anything else better. Of course, my idea that I'm using for my fanfiction is 10 million times better. Just saying. And if you want to know that, you need to go watch the videos about my fanfiction, which I'm still working on. It's Colin B. Smith, Snoke Luke hand thing. No, actually, I kind of like that. Okay, anyway.
I wonder where it landed.
Well, it didn't land anywhere per se. It just got collected by some Imperial agents and taken to the cloning facility, the Emperor's storehouse on Wayland. That was being over. Oh yes,
I was imagining kind of splattering on the ground. Sorry, it's kind of gross, but
yeah, definitely. I am as tired of my life as you are, Londo to Jakar. And then Jakar is like, I'm just gonna choke you out now.
Oh man, but yeah, the fact that Delenn got to see a little flash forward of like here comes Anna Sheridan.
Yep. played by everyone's Little House star, Melissa Gilbert. And the funny thing is, they so seamlessly incorporate and retcon Anna Sheridan into that particular moment, because Anna Sheridan back earlier in season 2 looked completely different.
Yep, they taped that section with just her speaking into the pickup about like I'm so excited.
Yeah, because it went from a redhead with a very deep and pronounced Southern drawl to Melissa Gilbert, who played Laura Ingalls. And just FYI, and this is not meant as a jab, Matt Baxter is a huge fan of Little House on the Prairie. We recently just got the box set of the entire series.
Oh, nice.
And we actually have the Melissa Gilbert Little House on the Prairie cookbook. And I've actually cooked a few things from it. They're actually quite tasty.
Well, I don't know if we said it about this last part of the two-parter, but I like the flashbacks that Sinclair has to Naroon talking to him like he talks like a Benbari. And and you know, like the other little hints, it's like, well, here we go.
Yeah, that was a nice, because again, it weaves it all together, the meaning for Sinclair, because it doesn't give him just closure. It gives him like an everlasting presence throughout the whole series, because everyone says in Valen's name, and you know his like legacy is like ever present. So that's cool that's Sheridan. And then Sinclair, I got my S's mixed up.
But it's okay. But it's okay. The Soul Hunter, you know, the crazy Soul Hunter, he probably recognized Sinclair as Valen at the last moment. He says, they're using you. And he's like, all like, oh shit, I missed the greatest soul of all time and it's standing right in front of me.
Yeah. That's right.
Wrap in a hat. I could have had Valen's soul instead of some random Benbari, although the random Benbari is a daughter of Valen.
Yeah.
Colin B. Smith. I'll bring up Colin's comment here. I personally preferred his first wife, Catherine McComb, in the role. Yeah, but it's Melissa Gilbert. And I'm just going to say, even though they're divorced now, Melissa Gilbert's awesome.
I still think it was fun. They probably had fun acting out some things in season 4 where she gets nudes. Oh man.
Newt. That's season 3.
Sheridan's about to go over the edge. She's like walking very like it's not seductive. It's more like dangerous spider person. And the other two shadows are next to her. And she's like, "Oh, join me, John." It's like, uh-oh.
That was some Darth Vader stuff right there in a creepy way, because she was all like,
yeah.
She kind of had a Catwoman walk to her.
It's like, oh no, not that.
And okay, I'm gonna bring up Colin's comment here. Should I admit I have fancied Karen Grassley? Heck, let's not leave it as a past participle. I don't even know who Karen Grassley is, and everybody in the chat is rolling their eyes like, "Get bastard! How can you know who Karen Grassley is?"
No, I don't know who that is either.
Colin, if you give me some frame of reference, I might be able to work with you. I wonder, did the Soul Hunter know Delenn was a child of Valen? That's why he tried to capture her. That's possible. Of course, the fact that she was in direct proximity to Ducat when he died, that makes her of special significance. So, and not to mention, she was at that time a member of the Great Council.
Even if newly minted, but yes.
Well, at that time, she had been a member of the Great Council for a while.
Oh, yeah, but in comparison to the others, she was still a little bit new. That, and they gave her the deciding vote on whether or not to go keel over on the humans. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yours is the deciding vote, Delenn. What shall we do? Kill them all! Uh-oh.
Gee, thanks!
Oh yeah,
your great grandfather would be so proud. And Valen's turning over in his tomb or whatever, and he goes, "Oh, I'm so ashamed of you, Delenn. I had such high hopes for you, and then you decided to go to war against my former species." Way to go, dumbass. And in that moment, Valen talked like Red Foreman. Oh, goodness. Okay, we're getting a little slap happy. Here, I'm quoting Red Foreman, and it's Valen, and Valen's talking like Red Foreman, and that's just weird. And last week I was all deep and heavy, and I miss Kosh. Kosh is dead. It makes me sad. Well, it does make me sad because Kosh is awesome.
From looking at this other stuff, it's too bad more characters didn't have flashbacks or flash forwards, but it kind of makes sense because he had to cram so much stuff in that 2-parter anyway.
Almost could have been a 3-parter, really, if they wanted to. You know what I would have loved to see?
This felt like a movie anyways. A 3-parter would be good.
Well, you know what I would have loved to see? Maybe just like 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. Valen kicking ass in the past, throwing the smackdown on the shadows. That would have been awesome. Not to mention,
we could have seen that as a film.
We could have seen the first one's blowing shit up. That would have been doubly awesome. I mean, we've seen the first one ships and what they can do. They one-shot pretty much a Warline Planet Killer. Like, holy freaking cow. I mean, I guess it's like the thing we always say. The less we see it, the more we want it. At least we did. Elysium, you can say that out loud.
See, honestly,
if
they ever did do what?
No, I was just saying I pulled a pin on that grenade and waited for people to notice a comment.
My own grandpa. Oh no.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you, Colin. Okay, yeah, I could see that. She was kind of cute. Yeah, I can see that. Lore Runner. Okay, I'll bring up their Beer 31's question here, or comment here. Lore Runner mentions they had to chop quite a lot of scenes to make it fit. I would love to see the director's cut of War Without End. J. Michael Straczynski, give us the director's cut of War Without End. I'll pay for it. Put it on digital. I don't care. I'll buy it.
With the Blu-ray release or something.
Yes.
Special Babylon 5 edition.
Yes. We want the Straczynski cut of War Without End.
Yeah. That's going to be a complicated hashtag.
No, just simple hashtag. Release the War Without End Straczynski. A Straczynski War Without End cut. Or just release a Straczynski cut. Anything that's cut is awesome. Babylon Squared.
Yeah, this is definitely. I'm trying to remember what I was going to say. Okay, I'll get back to you guys.
Let's see. In Babylon Squared. In Babylon Squared, the crewman who sees the blue suit figure appears in the hallway, tells Krantz it's back. Presumably, the B4 crew had seen Sheridan appear and disappear. Yeah, that's possible too, because he does materialize and dematerialize a few times.
Yep, and I imagine the blue suited version that reached out to Sinclair in that episode was probably Delenn. Because I think I remember Delenn putting her stabilizer on Sheridan when she sees him appear in the corridor and fill up the blue suit. If I remember correctly. So it's like, ooh, she's saving her husbando again.
Well, that's what she does. Because she loves John. So, and unlike Marcus and Ivanova, it's not unrequited. She reciprocates. She reciprocates a lot. She gave him a son, after all.
Yep. And it's like poor Ivanova. She never, man. If Ivanova had stayed with the team, they would have given the romance angle with Byron with her. I'm like, oh no, she would have failed on another romance level. Oh no, because I remember reading that at one point. I'm like, oh my god, no, don't do that to Ivanova. She already had bad enough luck.
Yeah, if she didn't have bad luck, she'd have had no luck at all.
That's like her tragedy.
Yes.
No love for Ivanova.
Okay, I'll bring up Elysium's comment or in the private chat. Lurker's Guide. Sheridan wasn't a backup for Sinclaire. He was brought in specifically because I need someone who could do and would do things in a different way and have a different arc. If it was going to track 1-to-1, you didn't need a new character. That's true. That is very, very true.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll bring up Colin's comment here. Yes, they swapped, so it was probably Delenn Zathras gave the repaired stabilizer to. Yeah, that's possible. I
think so because I'm watching in the background right now.
Oh, are you?
Yeah. It's right before she swaps out into the blue suit right before Zathras sees Sinclaire from the Babylon Squared. He's like, oh, not the one.
Actually, yes, that is the first
when
kiss that they have.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, because if that's the first kiss for John, but for Delenn in that time period, that's like she's already kissed him a lot. Like in terms of the time travel aspect, that's John's actual first kiss, and then he's super excited when he finds out. Wait, we have a son? Huh? What?
I mean,
well, they kind of got the
see you
blessing from the grandfather in this.
Precursor of woohoo.
They had an almost kiss that Ivanova interrupted a few episodes back.
Oh. Oh, I hate those.
Ivanova, worst timing ever.
Colin has a good comment here. I actually think that the Ivanova Byron relationship would have caused her telepathic powers to awaken, which may well have fed into the telepathic war. That's a possibility.
Yeah, that and Lita was already destined to be part of that anyway, no matter from what angle.
Yep, pretty much so. All right, well, guys, we're coming up on an hour and a half, and I still need to eat dinner, and I've got another stream at 8 o'clock, so I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. But we can put a pin in this if you want to, and we can come back to it a little bit next week before we go into the next episode, or we can just dedicate next week's stream to the next episode, one way or the other. I'm fine with both. So, but great discussion, really.
Yes.
So, and I want to thank everybody that tuned in today and was involved in the chat. Bureau 31, Colin P. Smith. Colin, it is great to see you back in the chat. I know it's been a long time. I know you can't always make it, but anytime you're here, you always bring so much to the chat, and I really appreciate you. And as the saying goes, the more the merrier. And of course, Tim Possible was in here for a little bit. Zach Leary was in here for a little bit. Lewis X Sparrow, I know, was here. So everybody that was here or who catch this on the replay, I hope you enjoyed the stream. I know myself and the rest of the council, we enjoyed doing this for you all each and every week. So, but as I said, I will. Yeah, Kojay, go ahead.
I remembered what I forgot.
Okay.
More is really quick, but more in there. I think one thing I like about this two-parter is just it shows how big the world is. So if they ever did do a quote reboot, I hope they expand it, like tell either the Valen story or take off at like year 6. Just expand on it, not just like remake it. I think that would be the best thing to do because this proves how big the world is and the story.
That is very true. Very, very true. But I do want to let you all know I'll be over on Orange Hat Reviews stream later this evening. Going to be involved in one of his versus streams. And we're going to be talking about who would win in a showdown between the Xenomorphs and the Predators. But the question is, regardless of who wins, we all lose. And, of course, I will be back Saturday night at 7 p.m. With another Geekgasm review, and we're going to be discussing the latest offering from the one and only Zack Snyder and his newest release, Army of the Dead, and we'll also be doing a breakdown of episode 4 of Bad Batch. So, hope to see you all then, and I do want to let you know that since there was such a good response Wednesday night to my director spotlight, I am going to be, when I do any reviews or director spotlights or streams, whatever, I will be putting the link in the chat so that you all can just come on in and participate and everything, because it makes it more interactive. I think it's a lot more fun, and honestly, it's a lot easier for me than trying to send out half a dozen links to everybody. Except for those that will say, "Hey, I definitely want to be there," so I just do that. But honestly, I like opening up the chat, and particularly for those types of streams. And it's definitely going to be something I'm going to do going forward. But make sure also, because I know Elysium was good enough to include the links to Fiona's channel, his channel, Lord Koj, Zod Rider, who is still MIA, but we hope he's doing well. We hope he comes back from the Beyond the Rim eventually. And also Classic Comics, wherever he is at. We hope that you gentlemen are doing well. So, but that all being said, folks, you have a great night and a great weekend. And until next week, this is the Council of One saying,
Zooty, zoot, zoot,
Zoot.
zoot. Oh man, zoot.
Zoot.